Well, hello there. Fancy meeting you.
Good morning, Chelsea. Thanks for coming to our Meet the Archaeologist. How you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Hey, just for people who are not here from the United States or who may not know you, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, what kind of archaeology you do, what you're doing right now, and how you got into archaeology in the first place?
I'm a historical archaeologist based out of Oregon, Southern Oregon more specifically, and I work at Southern Oregon University, and my specialty is kind of the gold rush era. So I do a lot of work with mining camps, Chinatowns, and into the Victorian era to the turn of the century is mainly what I focus on. I was been involved with 2 seasons of Time Team, and we're working on writing a grant for a third. So.
Oh, very nice. Very nice.
And I wanted to be an archaeologist, I think, like many of us, since I was a little kid, and was pretty obsessed with Egyptology in particular. And it took me a while to kind of find my way into my current career, but it's been a lifelong, interest and goal, I guess.
So what was it about? Why the gold rush? I guess the gold rush in Chinatown. What was it about that area that kind of drew you to it in the first place?
A few things. I guess one side effect is that I live here in Southern Oregon, and that is kind of one of the really interesting aspects of the local history. And so there's work, is one part of it. But the other part is it's a really dynamic time period in the West. I mean, it is the Wild West. So, this is a big narrative for us growing up on the West Coast. And the thing that's really fascinating to me is there's still so many questions left to pursue because there's such, like a lot of archaeology, there's such a big gap between kind of these overarching myths about what happened during this time period and then what really happened. So between the people and then these big, mythic stories about the Wild West, that's a really fascinating juxtaposition for me and something that's kind of fun to dig my teeth into.
Okay, yeah, I was getting ready to say, and you could definitely, I'm curious about your opinion on this. When I thought about it, I was like, archaeology in the Pacific Northwest, everyone, the migration west, there's just not a lot, you don't hear a lot about it, at least in the media, in my opinion. You don't see a whole, maybe if the locals around there do, but it's me coming from Kansas City, and, East, you hear about, Native American sites around here, Civil War, Revolutionary War, if you're on the coast, pirate ships, whatnot, but you don't hear a whole lot about what goes on California, Washington, Oregon. It's just kind of an empty void. So that's why I was interested in hearing you say that.
Yeah, and part of that is a larger debate some of us Western scholars are having because we still are the frontier in some aspects. Not only is there a lot left to learn and explore, but we are sort of marginalized within the larger discipline, partly just because we're really far over here, and our stuff isn't as old. So it's part of a larger thing is bringing that what we're doing out here to the larger, joining in with these larger debates and kind of integrating this scholarship on the West into that.
Okay. Now, you're a professor at the University of Southern Oregon, right?
I'm not a professor. I don't teach. I'm research faculty.
You're a research faculty. Okay. Mm-hmm. So when you're not doing the work in the faculty at the university or with Time Team, do you have any like past projects or like a favorite project of yours that you might have done?
Yeah, so because I am in the research side of things, I do a lot of contract work and research work. So a lot of my work in the last several years has been focused in Jacksonville, which is a small national landmark town, and one of the first of its kind. It was preserved, one of those stories where it was preservation through neglect. It was almost a ghost town. So the whole town is just kind of 19th century, a lot of the buildings and stuff, which means there's a lot of archaeology. And then in the last few years, as different development projects come in, redoing the highways or adding sidewalks or stuff, there's tons of archaeology, and it's been really great, and almost to the point of too much of a good thing because there's so much coming out of there. But it all is adding to this much needed scholarship on the West. I mean, this is on a micro scale the story of the American West, very dynamic, very global. and a lot happening in a really small amount of time. And so it's been really exciting to work on that. And that's what's been taking over my life for the past few years.
Very nice, very nice. I find that's pretty fascinating. Now, I also know you're a big advocate for public archaeology.
Mm-hmm.
So in those projects, are you bringing in the local people around there, the local city folk nearby and stuff, as well as students, and kind of helping them, educate them as far as what happened there?
Absolutely. That is a very public community archaeology project. And part of that was because when I first started doing archaeology, I was working in this town, and there was a big project that, as big construction projects go, there was a lot of kind of, bumps in the road, and the archaeology kind of took the blame for a lot of it, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. And so there was a lot of work to kind of rebuild trust, build interest, build kind of in public investment in this town into their archaeology, which is such a critical component of their resources that they have. And so we tried to really go for a lot of transparency in the process. We invited people out for like open site days. We because we're just right downtown, we, rather than try to like shoo the public away, which wasn't really possible, we just tried to really invite them in to, a level that was workable. And had a lot of community volunteers involved in the digging, as well as students from SOU. And then also we had kids out there there's a lot of homeschool kids out around here. And so these two kids in particular were there every day just watching us. And their mom said at 6 a.m, they'd be like, "Can we go to the dig?" So we built a lot of excitement through that, which was great, and a lot of investment from the community in their archaeology. But we also were digging a house that had burned in 1888. Mm-hmm. And so when we were digging this, I'm not an expert on fire behavior by any means. So one of the benefits of being in a small town is I went over to the fire department and got the fire chief to come out and look at the site with us. And then they were involved as well in helping us analyze, the fire as we went down. And we were able to determine that through their help that this house was really just as it had burned and collapsed, and it hadn't been messed with since. So that was really exciting for us, because to see, part of a Chinese household from that era intact is just really rare.
Wow, yeah, it sounds like, as far as the public archaeology goes, it was kind of an ideal situation, where you're getting different people, interests, different, even public sector getting involved into the archaeology. And you don't really just see that a whole lot in different areas. I mean, I'm a big advocate, and I know Mr. Soup is as well, about public archaeology. And,
mm-hmm.
And it sounds like what you were experiencing there is just kind of the ideal state that I would love to see in different states as well. So yeah, that's pretty cool. That's pretty interesting. Is there a website for this, for that Jackson Dig?
We have a Facebook page, which is the Southern Oregon University Laboratory of Anthropology. You can look it up on Facebook. And so we post stuff that we're doing there. And then we also have kind of created a little bit of a partnership with one of the local newspapers to do a monthly column on, they have I think I have one here. We made the cover for Oregon Archaeology Month. Too.
Very nice.
But we've got a monthly piece in there, either by me or my students, talking about our favorite artifact, which also helps the community stay involved after we're back in the lab and tend to kind of huddle in and not have as much interface with the public. So that's another effort to let people still kind of look over our shoulders as we go through. And so it's been a really successful campaign, which is really great, because this town really needs to kind of accept that they have a lot of archaeology there, and they're excited for the most part. But so we're trying to help, really get a sense of stewardship and ownership and investment in that resource, so that people going forward can protect it and, enjoy it as much as possible.
Awesome. Very nice. Okay, so let's move on to the next, or to another area more
Sure.
to personal for you. As being an archaeologist, what do you think is the most, satisfying aspect of archaeology, of being an archaeologist to you is?
Telling the story of people who have been marginalized or invisible in the documentary record, and then being able to kind of bring their story back to life is something that's really exciting and rewarding for me personally. I did my graduate work on this site just outside of Jacksonville called Kanaka Flats, and it was a primarily Native Hawaiian mining camp. Now, the Native Hawaiians were a pretty good population, pretty sizable players during the gold rush, and most people have no idea that they were here. And so a lot of what's left is just the place names: Kanaka Flats, Kanaka Gulch, Kanaka, we have these kind of names that show where these miners were living, but the sites were so ephemeral that most people have no idea they were here. So be able to kind of bring their story back, their contributions, they helped build the infrastructure that we still enjoy today, roads, they worked on jury duty, they did all this stuff. And these contributions were on par with some of their white or Euro-American neighbors, but their story hasn't been told. So those kind of things are what I think is the most important about our job and what's really, rewarding.
Yeah, telling that untold story from, yeah, exactly. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. So as far as the future of archaeology in the years to come, do you see any, glaring challenges for archaeology in the future, in your opinion?
Yeah, archaeology is expensive, and especially, during big recessions like we've had, it's really vulnerable, because if people need jobs, they need roads, they need whatever, it's a big expense that a lot of people, if they don't understand why it's so important and that it's a non-renewable resource, we can't just skip it and come back and do it later, then I think it's really vulnerable to, us losing some of the protections we have under the laws, be them state, local, or federal. And so that's one of the things that really drives me to do public archaeology, and why it's been exciting to be part of Time Team, to help introduce what we do to people on a larger level, because a lot of people still think archaeology means pyramids or, something that's not here, not in our backyard, has nothing to do with us. And that's, of course, completely wrong. So yeah, along with it being expensive, I guess it's also education. I guess I would see it as a challenge as well. Just educating people, even the lawmakers who would sit there and look at we have this other stuff we could do with the money right now. We don't really history is history. We just forget about it. Let's move on. So trying to educate them on the importance of what the archaeology can do for just the community and the state, and for educate just this whole umbrella of things we could do. The archaeology sites can do for them. I think they need some education on that as well. Yeah, and it's expensive because there's a huge responsibility behind it. When we take on a dig, we're taking it on the artifacts, everything, forever. Mm-hmm. So all those different components. Now, where the archaeologists, I think, need to improve is that public archaeology component, because that's never usually in the budget. By the time we get to the end where we know what to say, we're usually out of time and money, especially those working in CRM. And so, we as archaeologists need to be better about, having a little more transparency in the field. And I've noticed that shift just since the first season of Time Team. Not just because of Time Team, but just within the larger field of people having more blogs, more sites like this, which is fantastic. So just making archaeology more accessible, not this mysterious thing that you only hear about from the talking heads on the documentaries, So archaeologists are everywhere. They're all around you, and, you never know if one's standing next to you. So I think that's a really important part, is just being comfortable with talking to the media, sharing what we're finding and why it's so important, so that people are reminded that, it's something that they need to think about and kind of be behind us on, hopefully.
Support. So I guess for the students, and this is worldwide here, but the students who are aspiring to become archaeologists, what kind of advice would you give them that you wish you would have had going through the university and everything?
Well, one of the things that's great is archaeology, unlike some careers, is something that you really can get involved with from the beginning. There's a lot of volunteer societies, whether they're like a university or some kind of local archaeology thing that need help. There's never enough money to do everything. So you can really get involved right from the get-go. And so for me, what I did, I took my first archaeology class more than 20 years ago, and then it took me a while. I kind of decided, well, I'm going to go do other things, and then I got back into the more professional track of it. But in the meantime, I was doing other stuff and constantly kind of staying involved. And I think that really helped me when I decided to really pursue it as a career. And so I would encourage people, if you're interested in it, get involved, volunteer on a dig, do a field school, call your local archaeology society, because it's not for everybody. So if you think that it's all like really showy, glamorous stuff, then maybe you need to spend some time washing rusty nails in the lab, because that's what a lot of it is, or data entry or whatever, and so to me, that mix of things is what makes it great, because you get a little bit of, outside work, research, writing, but, it's not for everybody. So I would just say get involved and see where you can volunteer, and help other archaeologists, and just see where your passion takes you.
So, and would you agree, this is how I would think of it as to a certain extent, is, going to those field schools when you're a freshman in college, or even high school when you go as a senior, going to those, being in that dirt or in that lab or something gives you a good sense, is this something I really want to do, for the rest of my life? It's kind of a trial by fire, but at least if you do it early enough, you can find out and have time to get out of it if you decide this isn't for me.
That's right. And I think, a lot of people that become archaeologists kind of got the bug really early on. And, I thought I was unique, and I just wanted to be an archaeologist. And when I was applying for grad school, I wrote this cover letter that was like, oh, I've always wanted to be an archaeologist. And my advisor was like, don't say that. Everybody says that. And I was like, oh, it's not just me. So some people, I think, really have that drive, and then nothing's going to stop them. They just want to do it. But other people that might be more interested in the anthropology of it or whatever, it's not for everybody. So, get involved, try it out. See if you like it. And if you don't want to commit to being an archaeologist, there's still so much room for working with archaeology. Like, I have a lot of volunteers that are retired and always kind of were interested, so they do great work with us. Retired surveyors, retired nurses, all sorts of things that people did for their day jobs, but they always had that interest in the anthropology and archaeology, and so they can kind of get involved that way too, which is fun. And it's a great resource for us to have that other perspective and that other skill set to apply to what we're doing. But when I got into archaeology, when I went back to school and decided I really wanted to do it, in Jacksonville, there was a dig going on with the University of Oregon, and I literally pulled over and said, hi, I'm Chelsea, I want to volunteer. And I worked with them for years just from that. So I just, that's just my personality, is just kind of jump in and go for it. So I encourage people to just go for it. Archaeologists tend to be a pretty friendly bunch.
Yes, I would definitely agree there. Okay, now a couple more questions here, and I know this one here I have to ask, or I'm going to probably be beat up by people, especially here in the United States. Where do you hope to see Time Team America go in the future?
Yeah, so we're currently working on another grant, another National Science Foundation grant, and we're constantly kind of looking at ways to improve it and to improve the efficacy of teaching science and archaeology to people in America. So I don't really know where it'll go, but I hope it continues, or the legacy continues. Most of us involved with it aren't interested in being TV personalities. We're just really passionate about archaeology, and it was a really exciting way to be involved with a project that reached a lot of people. And so whether Time Team as it is continues, which I hope it does, or whether it inspires some other show or something that's more methodology focused, more research focused, less, it's more responsible, that would all be a great outcome. I worked in Scotland for a number of years, and people there just understand archaeology on a different level, because of Time Team. And so to bring that dialogue to the States would be great, because we're not even at the point of explaining remote sensing. We're yeah, I don't know. The dialogue on a national level with the public is so, so far behind. People just, they think we're digging dinosaurs. So,
yeah.
Whereas in England, you meet somebody at a coffee shop and they're like, well, did you do geophys? It's people just understand archaeology and what we do so much more. So I would just I hope that whether Time Team itself or some kind of, something that comes after can kind of help fill that void here in the States. So
yeah, I would like to see that as well. I mean, I go to the University of Leicester out of the UK from distance learning. Mm-hmm. I went over there. It was the same thing. You could definitely tell their concept or understanding of cultural heritage is a lot different from the United States. And I don't know the UK as well. I don't know if it's just because older culture over there, so they're more with it, or they understand it more, how that works. But it's definitely a night and day, at least at how I look at it when you sit there. Well, great. I mean, hey, I really appreciate your time. Would it be okay here maybe next spring or maybe next summer to give you a shot back and see how things have been going?
Please do. Please do, yeah. Hopefully I'll have something exciting to update.
Hey, you know what? Just hearing archaeologists and what they're doing is pretty awesome, and it's exciting stuff, especially for people who are not in that field yet, get to hear from firsthand accounts from archaeologists, what they do and how they do it and what they think of it. So it was greatly appreciated. So Chelsea, again, thank you for taking time out today. I know you're very busy, so I really appreciate your time, and I'm sure the people watching appreciate it too.
Yeah, thank you. And be sure and check out the Time Team America website. We put a lot of time and energy into developing like web videos and clips and links and stuff, so people that either have no idea what archaeology is or want to get into it can use it as a resource in addition to or instead of the shows. So head over there and check out and troll around and see what you find.
Yeah, so, we could definitely add the link to the bottom of the video. Not a problem.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. It was great talking with you.
Hey, it was great talking to you. Thank you so much. You have a great day.
You too.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.